3.
Identifying as a mom, daughter, conservative, friend, parental rights activist, Republican Party delegate, lover of freedom, conspiracy theorist, mama bear, and force to be reckoned with, this is Raising Liberty with Lindsey Beckham. Good morning. Coming to you for the second time this week. And episode 20, we have made it to episode 20. So that is exciting. And I know that my guest today will have some exciting stuff to share with us. So we are joined today by Mississippi House Representative Fred Shanks, representing Rankin County. What district are you?
District 60.
District 60.
That's primarily your downtown, old Brandon area. Go to Puckett, Florence, and all that. But it's primarily kind of Highway 80, Brandon.
Did you have
the 042?
The 042.
Yeah, the real Brandon.
The real Brandon. Did you have breakfast with your cast of characters over there in Rankin County?
I did. Usually on Friday we meet up. A group of us meet up in the Justice Court, the actual courtroom, and try to solve all the problems we can. So got a few of those knocked out when I was on the way over here.
Saving the world.
That's right. Try
one breakfast at a time.
There's a lot of hot air, really.
So, how long have you been in the legislature?
Well, I got in 18 in a special election, so technically this will be my eighth session coming up. So in January,
coming up on your 8th session,
yeah.
I know one of your most biggest achievements was you got to be the one to end session.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So when our new speaker came along, who's Jason White, he was previously our speaker pro tem. The speaker, one of the big deals that they handle is putting people over different committees. So he put me over rules and which sounds fun. And then when you get in there, it's the busiest committee there is. You're literally at the well, which is the podium. We call it the well.
Mm-hmm.
You're there every day. You're working with everybody, and you are over the rules of the House, which govern how we operate. So yes, you get to end session every day, and if you don't, it technically would still be going on. So and then of course, yeah, like you said, the last day of session, and I yelled it out, which we say "sine die," which is end of the day. People clap for me, so I felt pretty good about that.
Yeah,
everybody's ready to go home.
Especially this last session, because in Mississippi, every 4 years when we have new legislators coming in, there's a 4-year session instead of a 3-year session. So I know you guys were all ready to get out of there.
You're right. It's instead of 3 months, it's 4 months. It gives the opportunity. Well, in this case, we did have a new speaker, so kind of gives him another month to, get his office in order and his employees, in his office set up and, committees. And there's just so much to do. And of course, we had a huge session anyway. So gives us a little time. But by the end of that 4-month period, everybody's kind of ready to get back home.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like the new speaker had a pretty easy transition coming in.
Yeah, Jason is a sharp guy. I actually knew him in the past. He was a baseball player, and you can't ever go wrong with a former baseball player.
And so you knew all the baseball players because your dad.
That's right. He played for my dad when he was at Mississippi College. My dad was a coach out there for a time. He also had some summer teams. So Jason was actually helping. He's a couple years older than me and my brother. So he kind of coached one of our summer teams. And I got to know him. And it's kind of funny how things work out, kind of come full circle. But he was the speaker pro tem, like I said, and I mean, we had just all knew that he was going to be the next guy. And to your listeners who don't know, we all vote on lieutenant governor, but as far as the speaker of the House goes, that's only elected by the body of the House of Representatives. And we all liked him, and that was obviously our our guy, and done a real good job. Just. Real smooth transition, has some good people working for him, and he kept us pretty busy this go round. And still, heck, this is the busiest off season that I can remember even now, just getting ready for next session.
And I think maybe because it was a 4-month session, and it was longer. So there's a shorter period of time before going back into session. And I know it seems like as soon as session ended, there were things that people were starting to work on
Oh yeah, yeah.
for next session.
There'll be either missed opportunities or things you didn't know that you wanted to look in, make a bill or a policy on that, the time had passed. So, right now everybody's going through it. Um, but you're right. I mean, after 4 months, everybody's kind of ready to go home, but then you're almost halfway there to doing it all over again. And,
Exactly.
a lot of people think, those legislators, they just go eat and drink and during that 3-month period, and they don't do anything the rest of the year. But if you're conscientious like I am, and most of my colleagues are,
Mhm.
you're having meetings every week. You're on the phone more than anything, and it's time consuming.
Look, I talked to legislators this last session after midnight who were still at the Capitol
Absolutely.
working
Yeah.
and trying to get things so especially so much I feel like is crammed into that the very last week or so
Yeah.
when everything goes to conference, and then you just wanna make sure your bill
Yeah.
comes out of conference and gets back to the floor.
Uh, 100%. So when it just as and you and I kind of talked about this off air, but just working like if a legislator has 2 or 3 good ideas for bills, and then just some other things that they're working on for their cities and their counties back home, that is a lot to keep up with. And
Yeah.
because the process, but to have a bill, and you have to work that thing. You've got to work it from the time you come up with an idea
Yeah.
until the very end of session. You've got to work to whatever committee chairman it goes to. You've got to work that guy or girl, and
Mhm.
there's a lot to it. So to think that a legislator would have 15 bills, and some do, some have a lot more than that. It's almost impossible to really commit the time and to really work
Yeah.
for that.
I had no idea
Yeah,
until I got, like,
I didn't either.
really till I got really into the weeds
Yeah.
of it, how a bill actually becomes a law. It is not easy.
No, no, not at all. The the easiest part would be just the idea of what the concept is, and I know you and I have talked about doing a few different things.
Mhm.
But I would basically take your idea to our lawyers, and
Uh-huh.
then they would draw the bill up, but they would research other states and see if anybody has something similar.
Mhm,
And
that's a lot of what we do. We
yeah,
get model legislation and then look at different states and what's worked in certain states and what hasn't worked and why it hasn't worked. So, I mean, and this is even before session
oh
starts.
yeah,
And
yeah, we're doing that
wait,
now.
wait, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So they will come up, and the lawyers they'll ultimately they'll give you the bill, and then you take it and you drop it, and you actually, or I would actually take that bill and drop it in a little wooden mailbox on the House floor. It then goes to the speaker. The speaker will decide what committee he wants it to go to, and then it's up to the chairman. A committee chairman has a lot of power,
Yeah.
and if they like you, and you can talk them into the bill and looking at it, and they think it's a good idea, then they will bring it up in committee, or they will leave it on their calendar. If they leave it on their calendar, it's dead.
Mhm.
But if they bring it up, they have to pass it out of their committee, and then once it passes there, it would then go to the House floor. It would pass there after everybody's voted on it, and then it goes to the Senate side into their committee system, their floor. Then it comes back out, and then, like you mentioned earlier, you've got conference weekend where kind of iron out all the details. And if you do that, you run it back through the process,
Yeah.
and then ultimately the governor would sign it, and it'll be a bill. But it's very hard to do
You
and
can
very
say that
time
really
consuming.
yeah, you
Yeah,
say that
yeah,
really quickly, but
yeah,
it is not quick and it is not
yeah.
easy at all. And in fact, the majority how many bills did y'all have? Did y'all drop?
Generally, you'll have about 3,500 between the House and
And
Senate.
how many actually come out of committee,
Or like
would
how
you
many are
say?
actually law? Like 100, around 100 and something.
Yeah, but I
You know.
mean, even that first cut in
Oh
the
yeah.
committees, I mean, it drops that number
Oh, yeah,
way
yeah.
down.
Yeah, everything runs on deadlines, and, yeah, as that first deadline's gonna be a major cut to things. Then, your bill may be doing fine, it may get to the Senate, and you're feeling real positive about it, and then politics
I was
comes
gonna
into
say this is
play.
where politics comes
I know
in.
where we're going with this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
politics will come into play, and, there's leverage, so sometime, and this has happened to me before, but they'll take one of your bills unknowingly,
Mhm.
and it'll kind of get caught up in some internal politics that you don't really know
Mhm.
about. You know, they say, well, they could pass something on the Senate side and kind of hold yours hostage, you know,
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, it's politics 101.
Absolutely, and nothing's black and white. I mean,
No.
there's just so much gray area.
Yeah, and so one of my favorite people is Senator Dean Kirby. He's a mentor of mine, great guy. And when I first got in, he told me, he said, "Fred, you know, a bill is not dead.
Until it
It's
is dead, dead, dead.
That's right." And I really didn't know what to think about that until I got there,
You learn.
because there's several times where your bill, you don't hear much about it.
Flying under the radar.
Yeah, yeah, and you're like, "Well, that thing, there's, you know, it's obviously we got to start over here," and then all of a sudden, boom, it'll pop back up,
Or
and
in or you'll in the same code section of another
oh
bill,
yeah,
they'll
yeah,
get some language snuck in there.
there's some trickery,
There is definitely some
but
trickery.
it is very surprising. It's a very fun process if you like that. To be a good legislator, you have to work with people. You
Mhm.
cannot just have everything black or white, which is kind of what you mentioned earlier. You have to work with people, or you are not going to be a successful legislator at all. And things like that happen. You've got to know those angles. And if you believe in your bill, I mean, you do have to play politics.
Mhm.
It's just part of the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But you really got to keep up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you do. And I know when we're doing session, I'm just on my phone constantly checking to see what's happening
me too.
and where things are. Yeah. So, you even though we do everyone at the Capitol says nothing's over, nothing's dead till it's
Yeah.
dead, dead, dead. You very rarely see something resurrected after it dies in conference.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's you're getting down to the final cut on that
Yeah.
once it hits there, you know, and that's where you were talking about like midnight meetings, you know, conference weekend. That's
Mhm.
where you have those late nights because you're trying to iron out all the fine details, make sure you didn't miss anything, you know, because you're up against the clock too, and yeah, you know, that's where you can barter and kind
Yeah.
of bargain on things, and you know, that's where things will either die or they may pop back up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and so this past session,
mhm,
I worked on a bill called the SAFER Act,
that's right.
and that bill was to only allow public buildings to allow especially children. We were
Yeah,
looking at
yeah,
children, pretty much public schools, to allow them to use the bathroom according to their biological sex at birth.
mhm.
And it should be common sense. You wouldn't think you would have trouble getting a bill like that through, but politics did come into
It
play. And conference weekend, we thought everything was good. Like
yeah,
we had it smooth sailing from here on out, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't come out of conference.
yeah, and that one got held up on some politics, and you're exactly right. I mean, you would think there would be no argument over that.
Mhm.
And in fact, I remember y'all had Riley Gaines' roommate come down, and I got to meet her, talk to
Mhm.
her, and that was a pretty neat experience to kind of hear her side of, you know, her teammate who was a male,
Yeah.
like a 6'2" male,
Yeah.
you know, swimming, changing with them, and all that. How crazy that is. Um, and, you know, to for y'all to have worked on as hard as you did, and also even to have kind of more what I would say national figures come down
Yeah.
and push it again, yeah, you think no brainer, and it did get held up, and it was nothing to do with the actual Safer Act. It
It
was to
wasn't.
do with other politics, and
Right.
it pretty much was dead because of that, because the deadline hit,
Mhm.
and you know, as rules chairman, I got to suspend the rules,
I
which
love
is
it when you don't like something that's
yeah.
happened, it's like, "Suspend the rules and let's."
Oh yeah, look, you could make a rule to burn the place to the ground if you wanted to. It all operates under the rule system, but you know, I was glad to do it, but I suspended the rules. If therefore it got resurrected,
Right.
and to suspend the rules, you got to have a 2/3 vote. So I mean, you had to have everybody on the same page pretty much to just to suspend the rules in order to bring it back up on anything. And of course, we were glad to do it. Got it brought back up. Got a home run out of it.
Yes, I'm so glad to get that done, and it was so important to me because I knew from Moms working with Moms for Liberty,
Mhm.
the changes that were about to take place with Title IX and the Biden administration putting out this new Title IX rewrite, and we weren't really going to be able to fight that without having passed something
That's right.
in the state. Having passed the SAFER Act gave us a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
And being able to get an injunction stopping those changes from taking place until it actually is heard at the Supreme Court level. So it was just vitally important to me to get that done. And so I know I text you after you got up there because I didn't know that was about to happen. And I said, I think I said, Fred Shanks, I could kiss you right now. I was just so happy that someone had gotten up there and had the backbone to say, hey, this isn't right. I'm going to suspend the rules. We're going to bring this back.
And until you bring up a good point, I mean, things happen on the fly there too. So, you know, I don't think I, you know, intended to do it right then. It's just, that's the way it worked out. And you've got to be ready to go kind of at a moment's notice during the whole session. So, which that's part of the fun of being the rules chairman.
Yeah.
But, it's something, you know, something every day, and it's always last minute.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like herding cats.
Yeah. And the Republican women showed up and really
it was full. It was a full house that day.
Yeah. And that all, I mean, we were calling the night before at 9:00 to get people there. And so we have Republican women from all over the state show up, wear their red, and you know, say, hey, this has to get done now. We don't want to wait. We want it done now.
And it really, mainly in the House even more, but I mean, it is true grassroots. I mean, because, you know, if you want to know something, you can just pick up the phone, call me, or text me while I'm on the, you know, in the House chamber, you know, real time. And of course, cell phones have made that possible. But, you know, I like that. And look, if Fred Shanks votes, my name pops up on a scoreboard, and whether I do good or bad, people are lighting me up. You know, they'll text me immediately, and word spreads fast. But everything's 100 miles an hour, and but of course, I like that. But you know, things happen real quick up there.
Yeah, they
Sometimes.
definitely. Yeah, sometimes. So there was a bill, and it's kind of become a running joke.
Oh gosh.
But there was a bill that you authored this past session that did become a law. And so you had a bill that would ban squatted trucks. Now, I had no idea what a squatted truck was. Daniel's cheering over there. Are you not a fan of squatted trucks, Daniel?
That was kind of the general consensus.
But you had gotten a lot of people contacting you, asking you to do this.
Yeah, you know, I'm a big car guy, so kind of in the car community, I mean, you know, I was hearing about it. You know, look, we really need to do something, and the issue is really public safety. If your listener doesn't know, a squatted truck has the front of, and they're usually trucks or Tahoes, but the front of the truck is jacked up higher than the rear, so it looks squatted down. It looks kind of silly, but when they when the folks do that, their line of sight is the hood of the vehicle. They can't see 20 or 30 feet in front of them. And at night, they, you know, a lot of them swap out to those LED, you know, bright white lights. Well, at that point, when it's tilted up, it's coming into oncoming traffic, it's coming to your eyes. You know, so I would hear from citizens saying, look, I can't see at night because these things are blinding me. And then I'm hearing from my judges and my law enforcement community, and then my car folks that like, these things are dangerous. And they had a car show on the coast that I'd heard about, where when they were leaving the car show, one of these trucks runs into the back of a, you know, high dollar show car, and he didn't see them, and he crunched the back of the car. And then it gets a lot more serious. One of my colleagues in Smith County, you know, a child was unfortunately run over by one because the person couldn't see them. And, you know, a buddy of mine has a shop, and he was working on one of these, and I even said, man, let me drive that around the parking lot. I just want to see what it's like. And you really cannot see. I would say overwhelmingly people were happy about it. They liked it. And then we've had some, and I'm going to reiterate, small minded people who want to belittle me by saying that was kind of a waste of time. Or there's some think tank people who they talk. That's really all they're worth. You know, come at me and say, well, that's, you know,
how dare you ban something?
Yeah. And it's not necessarily, you know, they're harping on the word ban.
Oh, look, trust me,
know,
I know.
Yeah. And, you know, to those people, I mean, they're wasting their time. It didn't cost anything to do this. And, you know, one person lost their life. And if that's too many, in my opinion. So I was certainly glad to do it. And, the reception has been overwhelmingly positive on it.
And yeah, I thought about this bill
Mhm.
over the last couple days because we saw a child be run over by a school bus here
Yeah.
and lose her life, 8-year-old in
Yes.
Madison County, just
Yeah.
heartbreaking. And I thought about the child that lost their life because of the squatted truck, and it makes you think about those things
Yeah.
and how you did get something done that could save lives in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, glad to do it. If I take a little heat on it, that's totally worth it. From there, in to like we were talking about, it's hard to get a law passed, and I was actually able to get two laws passed this year, um, and which is a big accomplishment. I'm real
It
proud
is.
of that. But House Bill 691, I did it revamps the Board of Minimum Standards board, which that's under DPS. And what that is, the Board of Minimum Standards keeps up with law enforcement certificates. So if you are a certified law enforcement, you went through academy, and you've got a certificate to be a full-time police officer or sheriff's deputy. And this bill, I worked in conjunction with Sean Tyndall, the
Yeah.
commissioner. Um, and we've already got it into effect. The board's been revamped. There's about 13 members. They're from all over the law enforcement community. But what this does is right now, or prior to this bill, the only people or law enforcement agencies that had to have continuing education and further training were cities, municipalities. And this bill will pull in state and counties to this. And so what's going to happen? You're going to get a better trained officer, a better product, the community, as well as whatever their department is going to get a better police officer as well. So, real proud of that. Also, they will have investigative capability if there's misconduct. And as you know,
I was
we've
gonna
had some of
say,
that,
we had a lot of
unfortunately.
that,
Yeah, kind of
and this
close to
is
home.
a great thing for you coming out of Rankin
Yeah,
County to be able to put into law because there has been so much heat
yeah,
from what's taking place in Rankin County with the goon squad
yeah,
and the officers who are abusing their power.
yeah. This will, I mean, you would, and I really would like to think that, maybe that wouldn't have happened if, they just, they're hammering down on training. And if the officers don't get the training or they're not keeping up with it, I mean, they could get their certificate pulled, and therefore they wouldn't be in law enforcement.
Yeah,
But it's designed to help everybody. I mean, just the more you cannot go wrong having a better trained police officer for their safety,
absolutely.
and just the communities also. So that's one I'm really proud of, more so than the squatted trucks. But that was a lot of people working together on that, and kudos to Sean Tyndall.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
doing a great job.
he is. Oh, he's one of my favorites. He's real progressive minded in a good way,
Mhm.
constantly trying to tweak things, make them better. And obviously one of his big accomplishments that I've also got to work with, as well as the rest of the legislature's Capitol Police.
Yeah.
It has changed the dynamic of the city of Jackson.
You had Nick Bain here last week, and we talked about, expanding the CCID, and he did
Nick's
a
a good
lot of
old guy too.
he is, he does, he did a lot of work on that, and I know people just feel safer.
Absolutely. When I got to when I got to the Capitol in 18, the Capitol Police they mainly did security in the building, so it's kind of pretty much metal detectors, things like
Mhm.
that. And then when we came in, we changed it to a Capitol Complex district and made it an actual police department. And of course, as you know, my twin brother is over there. He's a major over all the patrol.
Yeah, and Bo Lucky over
Oh, yeah,
there,
yeah.
incredible
Got a
job.
couple good Brandon guys in there,
Yeah.
and, there's several more too, but they've really revamped it. Um, they had 2,000 arrests in under a year, and several of those people they arrested were murderers. So, I just can't get over how well it's been run, because you've got some competent people in there.
Uh-huh.
You got Sean Tyndall, who's got a vision, and they accomplished the mission, and doing well today. And you're right. I mean, if you go down to a state government agency, you're gonna be safe. Or if people are coming in and they're doing business with the state of Mississippi, they're coming into that area right off High Street.
Mhm.
So much better. Got a lot of the vagrants out of there too, and things are going really well.
Yeah, and not to mention, of course, Jackson is where the capital is, and it's where you guys go to work during
Yeah,
session, but also it's the capital city for the state, so I feel like Jackson is kind of everyone should have a part in Jackson.
absolutely, absolutely, and that kind of segues into one of the committees I'm on, it's the Capital Revitalization Committee,
Yes,
which
I wanna
we've just dubbed it the Save Jackson Committee,
yes.
and we've had 2 meetings so far, but that's my thoughts too. If the city of Jackson does well, then Clinton, Brandon, Pearl, Madison, Richland, they all do well. If
Mhm,
it does poorly, it's gonna suck and drain off of all those surrounding cities, so people need to understand, if you don't live in Jackson, one, it is our capital city. We wanna be proud of it. We wanna bring people here to
mhm,
show what we got, but also, it shows that folks really need to take an interest in Jackson and mainly the politics of Jackson.
yeah,
And I know that you obviously cannot vote in an election, but you need to help these good candidates get there
right.
because they have no leadership right now, none. And, you know,
If you can't do something as simple as make sure that there is water and
oh, I
garbage
know.
pickup,
Yeah.
then there are some real
Yeah,
problems.
well, so our second meeting that we had last week was about the water crisis, so we got to hear from, Ted Hennepin, who was the Fed that was sent down, who honestly has done a tremendous job. I think they have around 60,000 customers, and right now they've got 50,000 back up and running. 10,000, what they will do is, and some of these people have not had a water bill in 10 years.
That's
Hey, oh, it's
insane.
crazy. It's crazy, like, you can't even, fathom that, but with the 10,000, they're gonna come back and reapply. That's how they're getting them.
So it'll
They've
just kinda start up,
correct.
as a new like a new account.
That's right, and, some of them they didn't know where they were, they didn't know who was who, so they're doing that. They've stabilized the billing system. They fixed, Stokes, when Stokes, Councilman Stokes was talking about raw boo-boo,
Yeah.
well, they fixed 250 SSGs on that, which that's what he was
Goodness
talking about.
gracious.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a tremendous job. But the big problem is that the DOJ and the EPA are gonna come down here at the end of the month, and they're gonna have an open meeting with local leaders as well as the community and kinda see where things are.
Mhm.
Well, if you live in Jackson, you need to be at that meeting, and you need to say that, "I want them to stay as long as they can," because the second guest we heard from in the committee was the mayor.
That you did not
And
know was
no,
gonna show up.
no, we he had somebody else penciled in for him, and 5 minutes before he got there, we hear rumblings that, the mayor's coming. We're like,
What I thought was
"Uh."
hilarious is because Nick Bain was here last week, and he
That's
was
right.
talking about how he had to
He
subpoena
did.
the mayor to come to a press conference that they held about expanding the CCID and couldn't get him there.
Yeah,
And then here you guys are meeting on this Save Jackson committee that you've dubbed the Save
yeah,
Jackson committee, and he shows up, no one knows he's coming.
yeah, yeah, it's a tactic, and, he showed up, he had probably 8 to 10 people with him that had their cell phones, and, I mean, they look kinda like a little group, they stayed while he was there. He talked for 30 minutes, never even took a breath, and, I was just amazed that he could do that, and absolutely nothing came out of it. It was the strangest thing. I mean,
Nothing
I heard
productive.
him, I listened to him, but no real substance of anything came out, but he talked the whole time. His end game is to try and take back over the whole water
Right.
system,
He
and
wants the power back.
yeah, he does, and, that's insane. I mean, he's responsible for that, and, if he couldn't, I mean, we saw what happened under his leadership. It just got worse, and it was worse than Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
And, to have the gall to really push to open up your de so in the takeover that he was explaining, he had no,
No
idea.
plan.
No plan at all. So it's very important that if you live in Jackson, or you're a voter and you have a Jackson water bill, you need to be at this meeting. I don't think they've named the date yet. I just know they're coming at the end of the month, and say, "No way, they do not give it back to the city, not right now."
Yeah.
Clearly they're having, they've got people, who are running for mayor, and then, the city council's kind of a mess right now.
Yeah.
But until all that plays out, the feds need to continue on with what they're doing.
Yeah, and yeah, I've gotta say, I can't praise Tate enough
Yeah,
for coming in and taking over,
yeah,
finally saying, "Okay, somebody's got to do something. Enough's enough. These people have to have clean water."
yeah, and, I mean, in Tate's defense, he lives downtown,
Yeah,
he lives at the governor's mansion, and, he's dealing with it just like everybody else. And we did get to hear some different things on the water. The largest payer to the city of Jackson is the state of Mississippi with all the state agency buildings. So there's money
There's
coming
money
in.
where is it going?
Ex
Why are they not paying their bills? Like,
oh,
where is this money
you nailed it. Yeah.
going?
Yeah. And I mean, we obviously can speculate.
Yeah.
It's leaving,
I
but
mean, we have had some feds raid some offices and
yeah, that's ongoing. So, that alone is gonna change the dynamic of the city. So, I mean, what the mayor was saying was really meaningless because, he's clearly caught up in this to some degree. Um, so, I mean, the chances of him being back or even really finishing the term are, just from what I hear, kinda slim. So,
yeah.
and I heard, yesterday, I believe, like, Senator John Horn, he's in the race. He's gonna run for mayor. Kim Wade's gonna
Okay.
run for mayor,
Yeah.
and there's several other people, I think are at least lining up, which is good. So hopefully they'll get the talk going and
Yeah.
really, just vote for leadership.
Right. Exactly. One thing I guess that's kind of floated around out there, I don't know exactly the logistics or how you go about doing this, but I know there has been some talk about can can Tate have an executive order or call a special session and just kind of take over the city of
Yeah.
Jackson and get it back under control. I don't even know if that's even possible.
It is. When I first got in, I remember, of course, Phil Bryant was governor, and there was serious talks of us taking over the Jackson public school system, and that
Yeah.
came real close to happening. So, no, I know it can. Eh, it's kind of tricky to say if we would. Something has to be done,
Yeah.
and are they going to have new leadership put in place to handle this? I don't know. And there are talks, being had about it. And I dropped a bill 2 years ago to take over the city of Jackson. This was back when you had the Siemens deal going on.
Uh-huh.
And then of course that rolls into the garbage contracts. Then you got the water. You mean, just had all these things going on and they just weren't capable of doing it. Poor leadership. So there to answer your question, I mean, there are talks about that, and it can be done. I don't know all the specifics, but it's something I think we need to at least look at.
Yeah, I know there are some school districts that the state has
Mhm.
taken over at times, and, you know, I wanna be fair, and I'll say too, give Jackson Public Schools a little credit to be the murder capital
Mhm.
of the country per capita. The Jackson Public Schools, we have not had any school shootings inside
That's
the
true. Yeah.
schools, and so they do have protective measures and lockdown their schools are locked down enough that they've
Mhm.
been able to prevent that from happening, and I know I talked to you a little bit about how, that's something I would like to see in every public school, and, get the argument that we don't want our schools to feel like prisons for our students. Well, I understand that,
Yeah.
but I'd much rather it look like a prison than plan a funeral for
Yeah,
one of
oh,
my
yeah, yeah,
children.
yeah. I mean, I have a 13-year-old little girl, and, I'm with you. I want them to be as safe as possible, and, I think we should at least I mean, look at, talk about, and discuss these things and, see what some other states are doing and
Yeah,
just take, the best ideas we can.
yeah,
And, yeah, I'm all for, safety in schools and whatever we need to do.
yeah, and, I know one thing that Speaker White has been a big advocate of is school choice, and so, and also to back up for a second, there's a lot of people don't understand that school boards throughout the state of Mississippi aren't uniform. So there are some school boards that are elected, like in Madison
Mhm.
and Rankin County, and there are some school boards that are appointed, such as Hinds County, and so that's something I really wanna look at too this session and see how do we go about making sure that our leadership and on our school boards
Mhm.
are elected by the people and they're people who are listening to the parents. Because that's my big issues is parental rights, and that it kind of bleeds into the school choice, parents having the right to determine the best avenue or the best education, the way their children learn the best. And so
Yeah.
I love that Speaker White has been a big advocate on that issue. He's definitely in favor of it.
Yeah, we we certainly brought it up. It was discussed quite a bit. Of course, we had huge policies and things.
Mhm.
This, in fact, more than I've ever dealt with in one session. This session, And that one, I certainly believe is coming up, in January. I have not seen a bill or anything, so there's no specifics that I know of yet,
Mhm.
although those things are coming. But one of the big things we did this year is we rewrote the funding
The
formula.
funding.
It was called MAEP, and you had to be a brain surgeon to figure the formula
Uh-huh.
out. It was crazy. It didn't make any sense. The only person that I knew of that could decipher it was the guy that wrote it.
Yeah.
It was in the Senate. He's still there. So we changed that, and it focuses more on the student.
Yeah.
It's a good deal.
Originally called the Inspire
Yeah,
Act.
yeah.
I think that name had to be
Well,
taken
we
out.
and I like the name,
I
but
did
that
too.
was part again, that politics kinda jumped in and, a group of people didn't wanna have a name at all, so it's just
The new
no name.
funding
Yeah, it's
formula.
just a new funding formula. It's not MAEP anymore, but, that was a big step in the right direction, and it just showed that, we got the right people involved in that, and we made it happen, and, yeah, it's gonna work out well. It's gonna more accurately fund schools in the right ways, and it's gonna cut the fat. There's probably gonna be some mad lobbyists, and that's quite okay, who are making, money on contracts and things like that. Well,
Mhm.
it's probably gonna hurt them a little bit, and hey, that's fine.
But we're here to fund students, not
Exactly,
systems,
exactly.
not administrators.
Yeah,
We have, I think, the highest paid state superintendent in the country, which, you know,
and hey,
I
maybe Trump comes in and just abolishes the whole department. I keep hearing that.
he promises that he's
Yeah,
going to do that day one, and I believe him. I think maybe that wasn't something he could do in his first term
mhm,
because, again, politics, if you know you're gonna be running for a second term, you have to be careful
yeah,
what you do. You'll lose you a lot of votes, but that's something that he has sworn to us
yeah,
as at Moms for Liberty that he will do day one if elected. And I know I wasn't a huge fan of the VP pick. I was a DeSantis and Vivek
sure,
Ramaswamy girl, but I was blown
yeah.
away the other night watching JD Vance debate.
Yeah, I've been a Trump guy since the debates when he was debating Jeb Bush. I just like him. I like the way he operates. I know not everybody likes his personality. I think he's funny as hell. I think he could be a stand-up comedian, but I like him. He's just that tough talking guy, and he is tough, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, I didn't see JD had kind of popped on the scene. I'd already read his book a couple years prior to him running for Senate, and I like the guy. And I thought he's gonna do well. I didn't see him, coming into the fold until Trump said he was, doing a speech, he said he made the comment that he's a handsome son of a bitch, and I was like, "Okay, that's gonna be him," and, and I have liked what he's had to say. I like that he's a little bit younger,
Yeah.
I think I'm 46. I think he may be my age or maybe a little younger than me, and,
Yeah, I think he's 39 or 40.
okay, yeah, real
I
young
think
guy.
that's right.
And, he's just, Midwesterner. But the more you hear about him, especially you're talking about the debate and how well he did, it shows you that Trump was way ahead of us. And he knew he had a stud on his hands. And
Yeah.
it really showed that he knew what he was doing. I was even thinking, that Trump should kind of do a wild card and maybe think about going with RFK, which
That
I'm glad to know that he's now
Mhm.
he'll be in the cabinet, I guess. So I think that was a good move. But yeah, that debate was something else.
I mean, I just was highly impressed, and, you know, Tim Walz is probably my least favorite person
Oh, he's
on
a
the
goon.
planet. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
he stands for everything that I am 1,000,000%
He
against.
he stands for whatever he's being paid to stand for,
That's
and
true.
you're exactly right. But by the end of the debate, I think I tweeted it, but I really think Tim Walz will probably vote for
I
JD
mean,
because he started nodding.
he was agreeing
Yeah,
with a
yeah.
lot of things that he said.
And, I mean, you almost feel sorry for Walls because JD put on a
I didn't
master class.
I
He
didn't feel
was
the least bit
well,
sorry for him.
yeah, or embarrassed for him, really.
Yeah, yeah,
But
there you go.
JD put on a master class on how to do it. He did it politely but firm. He calls out the 2 moderators, and he should have, and he schooled them on fact checking. I thought that was great.
Mhm, and did it in such a classy and
Yes, yeah.
polite way, but in a very dominant way.
Yeah,
Like, you're
yeah.
not gonna run all over me.
I mean, it was just I think he impressed Walls. I think that guy was enamored with JD on what he did
Yeah.
to him.
I think I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. I've never seen anyone debate that well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was just, and a lot of people were, talk bad about Trump and how he does it, but people don't remember, and they should remember that, I mean, he's had the federal government come after him for years. They have tried to kill him, throw him in
Twice.
jail, all these, lawfare is a new term now.
Yeah.
And, of course, the media has gone after him relentlessly. I mean, I kinda don't blame him for speaking up and acting out. I mean, just what the Democrats and the media have done to him has been just, unbelievable. And, I've kinda gone down a Nixon rabbit hole lately. I think he was a pretty impressive guy, and he made the comment on a video I just watched about Eisenhower, and when Eisenhower left, he said, "Fear the industrial complex."
Mhm.
So Nixon was doing a interview, I believe it's probably late '70s on the one I watched, and he said he would go one step further. He says, "Fear the media complex."
It's so
It's
true.
like he predicted the future, and he goes on to explain what the media can do to someone, and it's just phenomenal that 40 years ago he's saying this, and they're doing exactly what he's saying.
Mhm.
And they have done that relentlessly to Trump and his family, and, if he wants to cuss them out here and there, so be it, my book.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they have weaponized the judicial system against this man.
Yeah.
But, Fred, it almost makes me think, what is it about him they are so afraid of?
Well, there's I think the big thing about him is you can't buy him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a billionaire. There's nothing to bribe him with, which, I mean, look at Obama. Obama goes in broke, Clinton broke. They come out, they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
And Trump didn't even take a salary.
No,
Didn't he
no, he
donate it?
donated. Yeah, he
Mhm.
donated it. And, and of course, that hardly ever gets mentioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I mean, he genuinely, people can, think what I'm saying is wrong, but he genuinely he doesn't need this. He could go play golf and count his money, but he genuinely wants the country to do well. And
Yeah.
he's calling out the crazy, this crazy world that we live in right now. And he's putting it to them, and they're scared. And, the people that are really scared are not necessarily the elected folks. It's the bureaucrats that are,
Mhm.
the 20-year people, liberals who have been.
Establishment.
Yeah, yeah. And, it's hard to get those people out. And I think he realized, you know, he figured out by the end of his term kind of what he was doing, but he knows full well, and you kind of made a point of it earlier, but he knows what to look for now. He knows who he can trust, who he can't trust. And I've heard him mention that too. Even some people he brought on didn't work out. And he
Yeah.
knows, you can't have these people around. And just with who he's surrounded himself with now, I think, like we said, if he said he's going to do that on the Department of Education, I think he'll do it.
I do
Yeah.
too. I believe him. I believe he will definitely do
Yeah.
that, and that's even though I haven't always been his biggest fan,
Mhm.
I don't he's just some of the things that he says and the way that he talks about people, but, it goes back to that mean tweet thing. I'd much rather know that, he's doing what needs to be done
Yeah.
for children who are the future and will run the country in the next generation,
Yeah.
and just take a few mean tweets
Yeah,
with it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we're ready for that. And like you said, kind of setting it up for the next generation. I think that's his thoughts on Vance. I think
Yeah,
2028. I think it's Vance's to lose.
I agree.
He had. I would honestly liken it to when Obama. I mean, I'm obviously not a fan, but when he spoke at the DNC, everybody kind of knew, like, oh, who's this guy?
Mhm.
He's
Charismatic.
yeah,
Does
he's
he
gonna
have
he
the
can
it factor?
yeah. Of course, he's all fake, but he could speak,
Yeah,
and he related to a lot of people, and he was something fresh and different and young. And I think Vance did exactly the same thing.
yeah,
So this debate was more than just a debate. I mean, it really defined him, and he's gonna be our guy in 28,
yeah.
regardless of what happens. Although I do think Trump's gonna win. I think the polls are obviously all wrong, and I really think he's gonna win big, or as he says, bigly.
Bigly. Oh, I certainly hope so because like Tim Walz said, if there's one thing I agree with him on, we can't take another 4 years of
Yeah,
this.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy that he and Kamala have done a better job of campaigning for the Republicans than
right?
yeah. I mean, I think Trump once said at one of his rallies, he said he was going to give Kamala a couple MAGA hats.
Well, I mean, we've already seen Biden wearing them,
Yeah.
so there you go.
Oh, I think Biden. I really do. I mean, obviously, the guy has got dementia and he's getting on up there, but I think he did that on purpose.
Yeah, I think he's a little angry.
I do too.
With
I
his
think.
party.
I think. Well, I mean, they pulled a coup on the American people, which is insane. And of course, nobody's really talking about it anymore. Ain't nothing to see here. But I think he was not ready to go, and I think Obama has been running the country ever since Biden's been in there, and I think that's why Biden came out and endorsed Kamala immediately after, because I don't think the Democratic establishment wanted her at all.
No, I mean, in fact,
She scares them.
Obama and Nancy Pelosi had even almost hinted to the fact that they wanted, at the DNC to have a kind of an open election and have the delegates vote and have people come forward that wanted the opportunity. But when Biden came out so quickly and endorsed her, it kind of put, it didn't, their plan couldn't go through.
I think that was his final, hit on him. He said, okay, you're going to get rid of me because look, Hunter, he damn sure didn't want, he didn't want his daddy leaving because he's, he's on an island right now.
Shade.
Yeah. And then I think Dr. Jill,
bless her,
she didn't want to. Of course, we've seen her. She's running cabinet meetings. I mean, that's unheard of. Yeah, but they didn't want him to either. Yeah. I think he did it on purpose, 100%.
I don't know if I've ever been more disgusted with someone than I was with her as she led him off the stage that night that he debated Trump, because it was like, how can you support this? He's clearly not well.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to they are not running the show. They have never run the show. I think it all comes down to the Obama group. All their people are still still working in government, and I think they've kind of forced a hand. I mean, he couldn't really step down. There was too much riding on it, and because remember now, if he would have stepped down, who would have been the president?
Right.
Yeah, and they were scared to death of her. They didn't want her doing that. And, of course, now they're stuck with her. So it's really been kind of fun to watch them scramble.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing I know you've worked on is the ballot initiative.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you, I know you worked on it this past session, and then
I've worked on it for 3 years now. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you, though, we are seeing the left and the Democrats use the ballot initiative to pass things to get abortion back in states that have taken it away, or to bring in more funding for illegal immigrants, things like that. So how can we in Mississippi pass a ballot initiative but keep those types of things that we as conservatives don't want back in our state on the ballot?
Well, that one it's really a catch-22. When I was Constitution chairman at the time, so that came to me.
Because does that make it unconstitutional if we have a ballot initiative but we only allow certain things?
Well, I mean, you can do it. We could pass it that way, but you run into the problem. So this year we had a carve out on abortion because, obviously, as you know, you've been a big proponent of it. Mississippi was behind the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and it was because of that. And so we had put all that work into it. So when we were talking about doing it this year, we just kind of took it off the table. Well, two things: a lot of your right wing think tanks, they said, well, you can't. That's not a real ballot initiative. Well, that's partially true, but we also saw, to your exact point, that these groups are coming into states and they're spending, I've heard, up to $30-40 million to fight the abortion issue. So, in the legislature, you've got a lot of people who look at it like, yes, we need it. The people had it and it got taken away and we need to restore it. And, that's not something we've had for 100 years either. I mean, we hadn't had it since I think it's only been around since the early 90s. So it's not something that, has been, since the start of the state of Mississippi. But
when we lost it, it was really just due to almost a change.
A change. So it's based off of signatures per congressional districts.
Gotcha.
We used to have 5 congressmen. Now we have 4. Well, the 5 to 4 language never got changed, and that's when Mayor Mary challenged it. And I mean, she was right, and it
Yeah.
goes to the Supreme Court, and they kicked it out. And they made the right move because that language had never been changed. But on the flip side, you've got people too that are thinking kind of like what you're saying. Well, we don't want Mississippi to turn into California because they have, I
Oh,
mean,
they have
they
so
have
many
crazy ballot
initiatives.
initiatives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's changed the whole dynamic of the state. Um, and then there's also a lot. I had just had a meeting about a week ago on it. There's a lot of states like California. Well, really, California's one of the biggest ones, but and then some other East Coast states, East Coast liberals, um, that are trying to influence and get involved in our state. Well, we don't want outside agitators coming in,
Right.
but they have the money and they have their political agenda they want to push, and they all look down on us in Mississippi. They'll think we're country, just
Yeah.
dumb,
Yeah.
and so they're like, well, we've changed our state. Well, let's start getting some other states, and they have their eyes on us. So it's really a catch-22. Um, I'm having a hard time. I'm really thinking about it this year. In the off season about what to do. Do we bring it back up? Do we not bring it back up? And I've had meetings both ways. But yeah, I mean, I'm really concerned about it, and because you don't want somebody hijacking it, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And I get it. I get it. The people had the option to use that if they wanted to,
But,
and
in my
now
opinion,
they
I
don't.
also believe that the people elect their legislators, like your constituents
That's right.
go out and vote for you and elect you
Yeah.
to make those decisions.
You're right. There's a lot of legislators that have that same viewpoint because we are a republic, and
Mhm.
that's why we're there. And if you're a conscientious legislator, like I mean, I am. If you call me, Lindsey, and you're like, man, I have a problem with this or this bill, well, I'm going to start working on it, and I'm going to start looking at it. And or if you have an idea that we can kind of get together on and say, look, let's try to make a law here.
Mhm.
Sounds good, and we kick it around, we work on it for a while, then we're gonna try to do it.
Yeah.
Now, some people probably don't have access to their legislator maybe like you do and, my district um, but really it should work that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
because 'cause you're there for the people.
Exactly. And if my thing is, if you have a legislator that you can't have that relationship with, that you can't call or email and get a response from and meet with and talk to, then you need to make sure you find someone to
Yeah,
run against that legislator.
yeah,
Vote them
yeah.
out.
Wake them up.
That's your
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You know.
And it comes down to like a civics lesson.
Mhm.
So when I was running in 18, my first cousin is Michael Guest. Of
Uh-huh.
course, he was running for Congress at the time, and I had people in town coming up to me, and they're like, "Fred, are you and Michael like mad at each other?" And I was like, "No, why?" They didn't understand. He was running for Washington. I'm running for Jackson.
Right.
And I've got some neighbors now. They think I'm in Washington, and it's just
People just don't
no,
understand.
no, they don't. But it really is as simple as getting on the phone and calling your legislator. And if they are, I have, kind of the ones that I talk to all the time. I mean, any one of them are going to take a phone call, and they're going to try to really help you. And that's what we're here for. You should, get involved, kind of like you did. You figured it out. You get
Yeah.
in, you meet them, you call them, and you talk to them, and get a relationship going, and then, I mean, they can help you
Yeah.
big
I mean,
time.
and that's what, when you care about something
Yeah.
enough, you just get in there and do it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just get
get
in
in
there
there,
and
figure
learn.
figure out the system. I mean, I had to figure it out getting there. In fact, I was, I came in a special election, so I came in the middle of the session, and I literally didn't know where to park. And the John Moore, who had my seat prior, he called me on the way. I was actually on the interstate headed to my first day at the Capitol. He called me. He said, "Look, you're not going to know what's going on. They're going to be saying all these terms. You don't know what any of it's going to mean." He said, "You look on that scoreboard, and what he's talking about, that's where we vote. It's got your last name, and it'll say yes or no
Mhm.
depending on how you vote." He said, "You look at that scoreboard in the bottom right. There's a word that says speaker, and
Just do it.
whatever he does, you do." I was like, "Thank you." And that helped me at the end.
That
My
helped you that
first
first time anyway.
yes, yes. Because the speaker is a rep just like I am and everybody else, so he votes too, and
Mhm.
he's got his own buttons. And anyway, it's you just have to figure out how to operate in there.
Yeah.
You got to figure out who to talk to on different issues, and who's friends with who's not friends with who.
Who the chairmen are.
Yeah, yeah, and I've told some of the new legislators. I've got a lot of them sitting around me, and I told them, I said, you thought your campaign was over. Oh no, it's just
Mm-mm.
started, because you have to then do it inside of the House.
Yeah.
You got to figure things out. You got to get to know the chairman, the committee chairman, and have a relationship with them. Or if you don't, your chances
Right.
of your bill going through is just not going to happen.
Because unfortunately, if
Mhm.
you vote no on something, those people who are pushing that bill could very well turn around and vote yes on something because just to
Yeah,
make you angry or just to do the opposite of
yeah,
what you want them
yeah.
to do.
Oh,
It's just so much politics.
it is, and that does happen.
So many backroom
Yeah. Well,
deals going down.
well, I mean, to be honest, a lot of the ideas and the way we operate and policy decisions. I mean, those are going on outside of the Capitol,
Yeah.
whether it's at
All year
night,
long.
yeah, whether it's night or off site, but yeah, and and people are leveraging things that you don't even know about that you're attached to, and
Hmm.
I've seen some people get real bent out of shape because they had a bill, it gets hijacked and put in with something else, and that whatever it got put into went against kind of what their ideas and their political leanings. So, uh, yeah, you got to figure out how to navigate it.
Yeah.
But to your regular voter, have a relationship with your legislator,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you'll be amazed at what you can at least figure out, find out, or kind of set you up for the following year. And I tell a lot of people that if a legislator helps you, it was them doing it. I think people have the idea that we have this big staff and secretaries, because I had one guy that wanted to meet with me, and he asked me what my secretary's phone number was. I was like, "Well, you're looking at him." And
No,
if
you read your emails. If
yeah,
I
oh yeah,
email you,
yeah.
that comes to you.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have any of that, so if a legislator, House or Senate member helps you, it was them, you know, one, they're doing their job, but
Hmm.
two, I mean, they were either, cutting red tape for you, which I do weekly, or, making phone calls or meeting with people.
Hmm.
And they did that on their own to help you, So I
Yeah.
just, a lot of people just they don't understand, like we don't have 10 people working for us.
Right.
So it's just us, you know,
And so I
one
know
stop
we're
shop.
absolutely. So I
Yeah.
know we're running out of time, but tell me, if you had to say right now, what's your number one thing you plan to work on this session?
For coming up,
Hmm.
well, we worked on Chairman Price Wallace and I. We got together and we're working on some suffrage bills, and this is just giving people the right to vote, nonviolent crimes. If they've been clean for like 5 years, and why not? They're a contributing member of society. We came up with that, and it's not necessarily a super Republican idea, but I
Right.
thought it was a good policy decision. We got some support across the aisle, obviously, and we got real close this year. So we're gonna push for
Yeah.
that next year. I have one that's not really any easy way to say, but if somebody was to say assault a minor, sexually, it's a castration bill. Yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna push it. And Louisiana has the same bill. That's kind of what we're gonna model it off of.
Louisiana had some great,
Yeah.
great bills this past session that they really worked hard on.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'm working on. And then also, of course, this year we had 2 special sessions within the session, and
Hmm.
we had these multi-billion-dollar, economic development plans, one in Marshall County and then obviously AWS in Madison.
Right.
And, those were huge. Well, I'm working on one of those right now that would actually be in West Jackson. But I'm still
Okay.
helping and I'm pushing. I've got a group of folks who I know who are trying to get this through. It would be kind of a similar deal on a smaller scale, but to what's in Madison more than what's in Marshall. But that's one
Okay.
thing I'm working on, just trying to help the state. And then of course, I'll be working on, municipal and county stuff, and kind of checking on my House Bill 691, making sure that's still going. And
Yeah, speaking of that bill, real quick,
yeah.
have you seen have there been officers or sheriff's deputies who have had a hard time? Are people not wanting to respect them because of all of the drama with the goon squad that took
Yeah.
place in Rankin County?
Yeah.
Has that been an issue?
Absolutely. I still have in contact with quite a few deputies, and a lot of them have moved on at this point from Rankin. And I know,
Because they
like,
just found it so hard to do their
yeah,
job.
yeah. Well, several of them say if they wore like a polo shirt, like I have on with the logo, they would have to flip it inside out to go eat lunch because they were. I mean, people were coming up to them, and the community was just mad,
Yeah.
and they're looking at them to take it out on, and that's not fair to them. I mean, these are good guys. They had nothing to
Right.
do with that.
Right.
But yeah, I know several that were either taking their shirt off or flipping it inside out to go get a bite to eat in Brandon. I mean, that's so absolutely. And then if you see, if they were to see that vehicle parked somewhere, people would come up to them, they'd say things to them.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, the community is just outraged.
I know at one point there was there was they were getting names
Mhm.
to try and remove the sheriff.
Yeah.
And I think they were pretty I mean, they had a bunch of names.
Yeah.
Um,
I was about 2 weeks ago, I was in a gas station right in Brandon, and one of the ladies that works there, she's African American, and she just felt I needed to know that. And she said that the people gathering the signatures were in her neighborhood
mhm.
the day before, and she just wanted to tell me about it. And I mean, I just listened to her. So
Yeah.
they're still doing that.
Yeah, petition. I don't know why I couldn't think
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the word petition, but I knew. I mean, and a while back, I knew the names, and I guess they have to check those names and make sure they're within the
Yeah.
in the county. But
Oh yeah, it's a process, and that would put it on Tate Reeves's plate to do something, and he's obviously aware of it. He's made some comments. There's been very few elected officials who have really commented on it.
mhm,
Outside of me, he did, and Sean Tyndall did.
yeah,
It's just not. It's just such. It's ingrained in politics, and within the community. It's just been real tough.
yeah,
But currently the civil side of the Department of Justice is in Rankin County right now, looking at things. I mean, they're there.
yeah,
They were there as of yesterday. So
yeah. It'll be
would be,
interesting
yeah,
to
it'd be
see.
kind of interesting to see kind of where things go.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Fred, I respect you. Yeah, I'm glad to call you my
oh
friend,
yeah,
and thank you for doing the work for the people and being at that Capitol and listening to your constituents because that's something that's very special. So thank you for
absolutely.
all you do,
Glad to do it.
and
I'd
thank you
like to
for
come
being
back.
here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so today we were going to talk about a Liberty bail bonds. Now, you can just go ahead and know that if I have to have a bail bondsman, I'm going to want to call Liberty, since that's kind of what I have taken on. And all things Liberty are great with me, and of course, my friend Sean made this ad, so it's got to be comical. But so
It is
Emily,
pretty good.
yeah, I know he has just become. He loves this. He loves doing these ads. But so it says, if you're not into jail sex, call Emily at Liberty Bail Bonds. She'll get you out. I can't even see what that says. She'll get you out before your first shower. Okay.
Okay, you have to explain the picture that is on the.
You want to explain that, Fred?
Well, the picture on the ad is a bunch of guys in jail with their shirts off, but I guess they got their pants on, and they're all looking at the camera taking the picture.
Like, help.
Yeah, a lot of dudes.
Yeah. So call Emily at 601-941-9233. And then call Sean Yerkeron at the Yerkeron Law Firm, and he'll keep you out before you have to go back
Hopefully.
in for more jail sex. Oh, I can't believe I read these things that he gives me. I mean, it's going to come back to haunt me one day.
My
I feel
favorite
sure.
is just because you're guilty doesn't mean you did it.
No, just because you did it.
Oh, doesn't mean okay.
Mean
There
you're
you go.
guilty.
Either way,
You got to get it right, Fred. You got to get it right. Well, thanks for that, Sean. Thanks for that ad that you came up with last night. You're just so witty. But thank you, Fred. I really appreciate you being here, and you'll have to come back, keep us
Absolutely.
updated during session on everything that's going on.
Yeah, be glad to.